Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings be upon you all. Welcome to today's webinar, where we will be discussing some recent cases involving Jewish and Muslim inmates with our staff attorney, Amy Ducre. My name is Zainab Fahas, and welcome to today's seminar. I will be your moderator. I am CARE Michigan's Director of Safe Spaces, and I'm really excited to hear more from our staff attorney, Amy Ducre. So Amy Ducre is a native Michigander and a native Detroiter. Amy graduated from Wayne State University with her bachelor's in English, and later on graduated from the University of Detroit Mercy of Law in 2014. Amy taught for about 10 years in local public and private schools. And a fun fact about Amy, a few of her favorite quarantine activities have been hiking with her children, trying to count all of the rabbits in Canton, Michigan, and eating apple pie a la mode. So Amy, you seem to have a very busy schedule.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. We try to make room for the fun stuff too.
And that's actually why I'm really excited about today's seminar, is because I know that you have a huge workload, and I'm so excited to be able to highlight some of the work that you've been doing for CARE Michigan as our one and only staff attorney. So before we begin, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. The first, if you guys are watching live, that means you're watching via Facebook or YouTube. So be sure to share that link so your friends and family can watch along with you. And also feel free to go ahead and drop your comments in that section, Facebook or YouTube, and we'll be sure to go ahead and share those with Amy, and she'll be able to answer all of your questions, inshallah. That should be it. So without further ado, let's just get started. Amy, if you could please give us just a brief summary about this recent case that we've heard about recently involving a Jewish inmate.
Sure. So we were contacted by an inmate who's currently serving time with the Michigan Department of Corrections, but he was formerly housed in the Macomb County Jail. While he was at the Macomb County Jail, he had a difficult time receiving kosher meal accommodations, and which meant for over 7 days he was unable to eat the meals that he was served because it didn't meet his religious dietary restrictions. He reached out to CARE Michigan when he couldn't find assistance anywhere else, and he filed the case on his own in 2018, and we recently took it over from him. We filed our notice of appearance on Monday, and we'll be moving forward with that case. It's a very important case for both Muslims and Jewish people who find themselves housed in departments of corrections, because it's a common problem that we have.
So what was the reason why our client wasn't provided with a kosher diet, kosher accommodations, etc.?
Well, the Macomb County Jail has this weird restriction, I've never actually heard of it before, that requires somebody that's in their custody to write to a clergy member and get a letter of good standing before they're afforded an accommodation, a religious accommodation. So it's basically putting the burden on somebody who doesn't have access to their telephone book or access to money to make phone calls. Phone calls in jail are inherently expensive, to try to reach out to somebody who will then write a letter to the jail system and say, hey, I know this person. He's a good, upstanding religious character, and yeah, you should give him a kosher meal. It's absurd. I've never heard anything like it.
So what rights would this specific Jewish inmate or other inmates, maybe Muslim inmates who hold religious diets, what rights do they have to protect them from receiving these meals, or having the prisons or jail accommodate to their religious diet?
So the Constitution of the United States affords everybody, even those people who find themselves incarcerated, the ability to practice their sincerely held religious beliefs, and the government cannot infringe on that right without a very compelling interest in doing like the least restrictive way possible. So it's been decided in courts many times over that people who have a religious meal restriction, the jails and the prisons have to accommodate that. They have to provide them with a meal that meets the standards of their religious dietary needs. So for instance, Muslims are entitled to not have to eat pork or eat meat that's not halal. And the same thing for Jewish inmates. They are not required to eat things that might be considered not kosher, like the mixing of dairy and meat products.
Got it. What do you think your biggest challenge so far has been involving this case?
The biggest challenge in this case is just coming in so late. It's very late in the game. What they consider to be the discovery process is almost over. It's less than a month away. We'll be done with discovery. So coming in at the back end is kind of probably the biggest struggle in this case so far.
You previously mentioned that we've seen this issue before where inmates are just not receiving accommodations properly. So why does this issue keep happening, or why are prisons allowed to set these standards? If they don't want to accommodate to a religious diet, then they are allowed to, or why do we see this repeating so much?
Some of the reasons why we see it is there is a lot of leeway with regards to what facilities who are housing prisoners can do because of budgetary restrictions or because of the need to keep people in there safe and secure. So they have a lot of leeway with what they can do. So that's one of the reasons why we keep seeing this issue. For the most part, I think that there has been some attempt in most places to accommodate people who have religious dietary restrictions. Sometimes the prison system itself doesn't have the understanding to know what to do or how to do it. And oftentimes that leads to a delay in people getting their accommodations, or people getting accommodations that are just not sufficient. And I think that's the biggest problem we've seen with the Michigan Department of Corrections, really, is that they're trying to give accommodations, but they're not willing to give accommodations that are sufficient to meet the needs of the people that are housed there.
So it seems like CARE Michigan is doing a pretty good job at working with prisons and jails to sort of educate them on what accommodations they should be making or what changes they should be making.
Yeah, so that's something that you work on through our Safe Spaces program, and also something that we do through litigation when necessary. But we try to be very proactive. We have every year, Ramadan is a big deal for CARE Michigan when it comes to people housed with the Michigan Department of Corrections, because it seems like that's a significant struggle for them. So I know this year we were very proactive through the Safe Spaces program, reaching out to them, making sure that they knew that it was coming. They had an idea of what the accommodations should look like, and offered our assistance any way that we could. And that's something that we will continue to do.
So before I move on, I do want to ask, common question may be, why is CARE Michigan representing a Jewish inmate if, CARE Michigan stands for Council on American Islamic Relations? So do we not just take Muslim clients? Do we take other clients?
So CARE Michigan, our focus is protecting the rights of Muslims in Michigan and in America, but inherent in doing so is protecting the rights of individuals who are similarly situated to us. When this particular individual reached out to us, we did reach out to some organizations that we knew that were Jewish-led organizations to see if they had the capacity to take this case. We were met with some problems there because many of those organizations don't have legal staff on staff, so they weren't capable. They didn't have the capacity to take this on. But the food issue is important. It's something that both Jewish and Muslim people have. It's a tenet of our faith, the food restrictions. It's inherent in our practice of our religion. So we're so similarly aligned in this that it just makes sense to protect the most vulnerable people, which are our people who are incarcerated. Protecting one group of people inherently protects everybody's rights.
So could you briefly also touch on legal cases or just cases that you've worked on that would involve advocating for halal meat for Muslim prisoners?
Sure. So I know a few years, actually before I was at CARE Michigan filed and won a lawsuit that involved getting Ramadan accommodations. There was a period of time where the Michigan Department of Corrections was not properly accommodating Muslims. They weren't providing them food at the right time, and they weren't providing them enough calories per day because of that. So Muslim inmates were getting sick during Ramadan or having to give up the fast period for that duration. And CARE Michigan was there standing ready to take the lead and fought and secured the rights for proper and adequate accommodations during Ramadan. I know that we continue to fight to get halal meat. Halal meat is not afforded to inmates in Michigan Department of Corrections at this period of time. They're placed on a vegan meal. In our opinion, that's not sufficient. That's not a sufficient accommodation. So that's something that we're continuing to work through with the Michigan Department of Corrections and other avenues if necessary. And I know, again, our Safe Spaces program, which is led by yourself, was able to get dates into many of the facilities that had Muslim inmates for the Eid that just passed, so that we could get some recognition of our holiday through a common food that we all understand as being a food of the Sunnah.
Yeah, that was probably one of my earlier cases, but I really, really enjoyed it because, one, I knew, okay, this had never happened before, so I was really excited to initiate a project. And also, I was just thinking about spending Ramadan without eating one date, and that really upset me because, like you said, it's sunnah. It's just one type of food is a huge part of our practicing and of our fasting. So I was able to drop off dates to 4 different facilities for about 400 inmates. And inshallah, next year we'll be able to grow that project and I'll be able to reach even more facilities.
Inshallah.
So I wanted to just pause and see if we had any questions coming in from the audience, or if not, we can continue this conversation, but I just wanted to see if we had any comments coming in. Oh, comment, Amy, you're awesome. So thank you so much. We do know that, like I did mention, Amy is the only staff attorney that we have. And I think sometimes it's difficult even for Care Michigan to talk about a lot of our cases because, we have to keep some things confidential. And in the beginning stages, when we're organizing and planning and trying to figure out how to move cases forward, sometimes we have to withhold a lot of information. So this is nice to really highlight the work that you're doing, bringing justice not only to Muslims, but to, like you said, people who face similar difficulties and just, cases in general that should be protected by our civil rights. I don't see any other comments, but we will keep it going. Are there any other updates that you can, tell us about the current case involving the Jewish inmate? What stages we're at right now, or what we're maybe what we're waiting on, or what your goal is to get out of this lawsuit?
So that's a lot of questions in one. So let me take them one at a time. So we're about in the end of the discovery phase, which means this case will go to the judge pretty soon. Probably at in the middle of September, we'll do motions and see if the judge can decide this as a matter of law. And then if not,
motion is, I'm sorry.
So a motion is like when you're asking the court to do something. So it's a very common practice. It's like part of the litigation process. It's like one of the steps, and everybody writes to the judge and says, hey, we think we should win because the law says so, and this is why. And then the judge will take a look at it and say, I think I can decide this, or I think I can't decide this. This should go for a jury. So we'll be doing that in September. So we're moving towards that, and going through the documents that were produced by the opposing party, which is the municipality of Macomb. And then hopefully we'll be able to, in the end, what we'd really like to see is our client get compensated for the substantial burden of his religious rights that he had for the time that he was unable to get an accommodation. And overall, we'd like to see the county of Macomb change their policy. This is a very flawed policy. It's a flagrant and substantial violation of not only of the civil rights of the inmates, but also of the law. It's a violation of constitutional law. It's a violation of the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Person Act. So ultimately, we'd like to see them change this very flawed system that they have, so that it's easier for people who are seeking an accommodation to receive one. That's really our ultimate goal. And hopefully that we'll be able to do that, and also go in and Care Michigan's, one of the things that we always do when we have litigation like this is try to go in and provide resources to the people that are having a difficult time accommodating. So we'll hopefully be able to provide them with some trainings so that they can see how maybe they could do it better.
How has COVID affected your practice with clients? What does that look like for you?
I mean, it's really been difficult change. It's very different to have to meet people the way that we're meeting now, sort of on the computer in virtual life. And everything's been that way. We've had to take testimony of witnesses on the computer, which is something that we've never done before, and it creates its own very interesting and unique challenges to try to question somebody and share documents with them and have them speak about them when they can really only see them on the computer. So I think that's been the biggest struggle. We've had court hearings on the computer. It's been a very, very interesting time to practice law, to say the least. But it's also been, it really shows you what can happen, like the advantages that we have because of technology today. Because cases haven't stopped. Things are moving forward. We're taking intakes every day. We're initiating new cases every day, and it's because we have the technology and the ability to do that. So it's been interesting.
Have you seen cases sort of slow down due to COVID, or do you think there's been a spike, or it's been pretty steady per usual?
So I've been looking through our intakes and our database and things like that. And I know that around the middle of March, we had about the same number of intakes that we had last year. We had about the same number of cases, even though we had been in COVID for, at that time, 2 months. And our intakes from 2018 to 2019 were up about 30%. So we were on pace with last year. Just recently, when I looked at it again at the end of June, which is the end of the second 6 months, we actually have way more intakes than we had last year. COVID itself has posed some unique challenges for people, and we've had people seeking assistance because they can't get back to the U.S. or because they have had issues with health coverage or unemployment coverage. So we've had people continue to seek help from Care Michigan at record numbers at this point. We're up even from last year, and last year was up from the year before. So we're still growing in the amount of work we're doing despite the shutdown.
Wow, full workload, Amy. I really do commend you, and I know what a big asset you are to Care Michigan. So thank you for all that you do. Do you let's see. No live comments still. Do you, let's talk a little bit more about COVID. You said you're working on some travel issues that have come up since COVID. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Where are people traveling to and from during this time? Shouldn't everyone be closed, or shouldn't everyone be at home? Didn't airports close? What does that look like?
So yeah, airports did close, and that kind of caused the problem that we're seeing now. Early on in COVID, we had people contact us. They had been on vacation in Peru when Peru decided to close their borders and institute martial law, and because of that, they weren't able to get home. People had been in Morocco. They were there for uneventful vacation, and right now we have currently. Originally, we had close to 95. Constituents from Michigan who were stranded in Yemen, who were there, had tickets to travel home either in the end of March, April, or May, when Yemen closed their borders and closed their airports around the middle of March. And in fact, we had somebody who was scheduled to travel home on the date that they closed the airport and was unable to do that. So they've been stranded there. We had about 14 people make it home. They did have repatriation flights, and we had about 14 people make it home. The rest of the people are still stranded in Yemen and still looking for a way home because the airports are still closed. So that's something that we're continuing daily to work on. And when I say daily, I mean daily. It's a daily effort, communicating with other care chapters to try to coordinate our efforts, communicating with people who are stranded, communicating with elected officials to try to get their support, to see what they can do to help out, and communicating with the Department of State about the needs of the people who are stranded over there. So that's something that we're working on, and we're hopeful that within the next couple of weeks we'll be able to get everybody home.
Inshallah, that is a huge case on its own. Do you think that the talk of this second wave coming, do you think that would affect people coming home within the next few weeks even? Or what does that look like on our side and having people come in?
I mean, I think despite whether or not there's a second wave, people have to get home to the U.S. People's jobs are at risk. People's health are at risk being stuck in Yemen. Yemen has like one of the worst famines in history. It's going through the longest civil war in history. There's another illness that's spreading through mosquitoes. It's not malaria, but it's a disease that spreads pretty much like malaria through mosquito bites. So people need to get home, and doing it before the second wave hits would probably be in everybody's best interest. But regardless of what we're going through here at home, the State Department needs to bring home all of the Americans who are stranded in Yemen, and that means all of the citizens, all of the lawful permanent residents, and the lawful visa holders that should be able to come in at this time.
Well, I know we shifted around a bit. We went from inmates to some people unfortunately stuck outside of the U.S. and all over, but I'm glad we got to get some updates from you, Amy. I think it's vital for, of course, our members and supporters, to understand all of the great work, even if it's just a small amount of the work that you're doing, because I know we don't have enough time to cover it all. But I'm not seeing any questions yet, so we can wrap up, or if you'd like, you can. If you have any other comments or anything additionally that you'd like to add, feel free.
The most important thing for people to know is that Care Michigan is here. Like, COVID has shut down the state, but it hasn't shut down our work. If people are experiencing difficulties, if they know of people who can't get home, or if people who are having an issue, a discrimination issue, or a healthcare issue where maybe they've received poor treatment at a facility because they feel maybe they were being not given the best treatment because of who they are, which we've had some complaints of. I just encourage everybody to reach out to us. We're busy, but we're here. We take everybody's case seriously. We're Care Michigan is here. We're operating and still working for everybody in Michigan.
And to echo what Amy said, if you guys have to or feel the need to reach out to us, if you have a case, if you even have a question about an incident that happened and you're not so sure, no matter what it is, reach out to our office. You can call us. Our phone number is 248-559-CARE. You can visit our website and fill out a form, or feel free to email us at caremichigan@gmail.com. Of course, like us, follow us on social media so you can stay updated with our projects, and of course, things that you can do at home to support our efforts and our projects. Last thing I will say is always keep us in mind when you're feeling generous. If you'd like to donate, head to caremichigan.org/donate. Please consider supporting our efforts. As Amy said, we all keep a full workload, but we're all very pleased to be doing the work that we do, and alhamdulillah, very happy to be serving the Michigan Muslim community. So thank you so much, Amy, for coming on and sharing your work with us. Thank you all for joining us. And inshallah, we will see you at our next session. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.